Before we begin, I'd like to talk about the Death Battle Dad Collab. This was something me and a group of other artists in the Death Battle community did as a way to celebrate Death Battle's revival, and because I found it very coincidental that a lot of the matchups that were helming the new year of Death Battle just so happened to have dads in them. So we all made this. I'm really proud of how this piece came out, and of the opportunity that I got to work with such amazing artists like Monkey Boy, Non, Zerador, Kuber Teehee, Holden 2020, Stephen Moore XD, and Scintillating Susie. Sorry, that word always trips me up. All of their Twitters will be in the description below. Go check them out and show them some love. And with that out of the way, let's talk Kratos versus Asura. I'm gonna be honest, I never have and probably never will like this matchup. I've always been more of a Kratos versus Dante or Asura versus Z Broly or Atrocitus guy. So to see this matchup become so popular over, in my opinion, much better matchups in terms of what you could do in the fight, I'm not gonna lie, it hindered my excitement for the episode. Like, I'm glad Kratos is getting a run back, and I'm glad Asura is getting something in 2025, but that doesn't mean I like this matchup all of a sudden. But enough about me. Let's talk about the actual episode. Starting with the analyses, both of them are really good. I really liked how the stories for both characters were covered. Two moments that really stood out to me were Boomstick gushing over how cool Greek Kratos is, only to say he felt depressed, which is something most fans of the older God of War games don't even do. And Wiz clarifying that Asura isn't a mindless rage machine. It shows that they have an understanding of what the characters are like in terms of their personality. And that ending for Kratos' analysis is really good, saying that he became more than a god of war, but also a god of hope, which lines up with the theme of the Norse games of improving oneself to be better. Like, come on, that's really good. And oh my god, dude, the sword and shield metaphor they use in both analyses is just, mwah, perfect. Needless to say, I love both these analyses. They aren't my favorite. Bowser vs. Eggman still holds me in a grasp too tight to break free from, but they are a close second. And then the fight? The fight is where pretty much all of my problems come from. Now, I like the setup that the preview animation had. It was a slow burner, but I understand why it was cut down. It was a minute long and the animation is already over 6 minutes, so I understand. Plus, I like the detail of the title card, giving us Kratos' name and title. It's a key reference to what Asura's Wrath does. I don't know how Kratos gets to Gaia, though. Like, from the looks of the animation, it's implied that Mithra was the one who summoned him, but then Asura tells her to run, so I don't really understand this. Anyway, the animation looks really nice. This is something Devil Artemis is really good at. The visual effects are great, all of them. The lighting is spectacular, and Asura's movements are just as fast-paced and sporadic as I would have liked. Kratos, on the other hand, I'm not a fan of how he moves in this episode. I won't lie. He does have some cool moments, but overall, he doesn't move as naturally as I would have liked. It's the same problem a lot of people have with Jason versus Michael. And this is where my problem with the matchup stems from. They just fight too differently for me to get invested. This isn't a fault of Devil Artemis, far from it. I'm sure he did his absolute best. But even if he had made the perfect animation, I still wouldn't be a fan of how the characters fight each other. This is why I say Kratos vs. Dante or Asura vs. Z Broly or Atrocitus would have been much better for both characters. Because those characters fight similarly enough to the point where the fight doesn't feel like it's trying to put a square block in a triangle hole. But I digress. Don't get me wrong, there are some cool things in this episode. I like the temple splitting and the big rock smack as a reference to the Baldur fight. The "You made her cry" delivery from Asura is really good. Kratos going from his Norse voice early on in the fight to his Greek voice when he's substantially pissed off is awesome and really allows both versions of the character to be showcased in one episode without limiting Kratos at all. Oh, and the callback to the Wizen fight with Kratos in Asura's place. And this fucking face that makes me think of the "clearly you don't own an air fryer" meme. Overall, the episode has cool moments, and the climax with Asura in his destructor form being pelted by Dropnir spears before Kratos stabs him in the face with the Blade of Olympus is badass. But there is one thing that, fittingly, pisses me off to no end. The misrepresentation of Kratos' character. Now, Kratos saying, "You let your rage consume you. I have gone down that same path," is somewhat fine. I would have preferred if Kratos had tried to reason with Asura like he tried to do in his fight with Thor, only for Asura to not give a shit because he's face-meltingly pissed off. But the ending line with Kratos saying, "You are a monster no longer," makes me so fucking furious whenever I watch this episode. And here's why. Yes, I get this is a reference to what Kratos said to Athena's ghost in God of War 2018. Here's the thing, he was talking about himself in that context. He said, and I quote, "I am your monster no longer." To say you are a monster no longer to someone he just met is completely out of character. Hell, in his final fight with Baldur, the only reason Kratos kills him is to end the cycle of kid gods killing their parents. And in his final fight with Thor, he literally says, "For the sake of our children, we must be better." Does this look like someone who is trying to be better? No, not at all. It looks like a man killing a father in front of his daughter because he punched him in the face. And I'm sure someone is going to try and justify this by saying, you could make the argument that he just assumed Asura was just like him when he was in Greece. And sure, you could make that argument. But then it makes Kratos look like a fucking moron with a terrible short-term memory. Because in this fight, Asura tells his daughter to run because he perceives Kratos as a threat and he's trying to keep her safe. And he gets so fucking angry, he goes into his berserker form and yells at Kratos for making his daughter cry. Does that sound like someone who is, quote, a monster? I would hope you all said no, because that is objectively the correct answer. And yeah, I like the fact that he sees Atreus and himself in Mithra and Asura, but then he just fucking leaves her there? Like a twat? Keep in mind, after Kratos killed Baldur in front of Freya, Baldur's mother, he didn't just dip, he talked to Freya. He tried to make her see reason. At the very least, you could have had him, I don't know, give Asura a proper burial with Mithra instead of making him fucking walk away? I don't understand how we go from an incredibly deep understanding of the characters in the analysis to this shit. And you know what? I think my rage is completely justified here. You want to know why? Because, as many of you may recall, Asura had a line in the trailer that was very out of character for him. So much so that Devil Artemis went out of his way to make sure that it wasn't in the actual episode. Other minor nitpicks I have are the Dropnir spear having fiery explosions when they should be wind explosions. The chasm at the temple is unrendered and looks very plasticky. And the voice acting on Kratos' end. For the most part. You see, Hussein Muhammad does a phenomenal Greek Kratos voice. But his Norse voice leaves a lot to be desired in my opinion. Again, his Greek voice is great, it's just the Norse voice I have issues with. And while I'm talking about the voice acting, Christopher Guerrero is really good at Asura. And the track is phenomenal. Reidi is great. There will always coach with cinematic tracks. Thankfully, the post-analysis is really good. It covers the 4 categories really well and puts them at levels I was not expecting them to be at. Like, baseline Universal, sure. But 90,000 times Universal and 9 million times Universal? That's crazy. And I am happy that Mr. Kratos, Loreman of Sparta, won a death battle. Mr. Asura Featsman put up a good fight, and even won the alternate scenario, which I do have problems with. It does come across as a little biased towards Asura. I mean, it's like the whole Goku's really cool, guys, but Superman still wins, but Goku's still really cool, right? But hey, I did say that if Kratos won, I'd buy a Kratos action figure. And if Asura won, I'd stream Asura's Wrath with my sister when she came back. And they both technically won, so Give me a second.
Hello?
Hey sis, you wanna stream Asura's Wrath when you get home?
Sure.
Cool, love you, bye.
Love you too, bye.
But overall, this is how I would rank Kratos versus Asura. Editing is gonna get a 20 out of 25. I know I didn't talk about it in this review, but it was still really good. Writing is gonna get a 10 out of 25. Asura was pretty on point in terms of characterization as far as I'm aware, but Kratos was really handled poorly in my opinion, which really does suck. He's a really well-written character in his games, especially now more than ever. Animation is gonna get a 14 out of 25. The visuals of the fight look great, but I'm sorry, their fighting styles do not mix well together. It doesn't make for an interesting fight. Again, not DA's fault. I'm sure he did the best he could with the matchup, but it's the fault of the matchup itself. And finally, analysis is going to get a 25 out of 25. They were really handled well, and they had a deep understanding of the characters and their stories, and I think they explained their logic pretty well as to why Kratos wins. Overall, Kratos vs. Asura is going to get a 69 out of 100. Look, it's not a bad episode, but it has a lot of problems that really bug me and make me angry because I like Kratos. I like how much his character has evolved and developed and where his games have taken him in terms of a story arc. Not to mention the fact that the differing ways the two characters fight don't mesh well when you make them fight each other, and it leads to a very, very uninteresting fight dynamic. But the analyses are still really good, and they show that they have a fundamental understanding of the characters' personalities and stories. That's why this is such a mixed bag for me. Well, at least the next time is Ghost Rider vs. Spawn. I am very, 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 very excited for this episode. I love both Ghost Rider and Spawn. I even drew this little funny image because Keith David is the GOAT, and I just find it funny that a Spawn episode is happening after a Kratos episode when Kratos vs. Spawn was one of the very first episodes in the series, so in Death Battle. So that's funny. Anyway, what do you think? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. And while you're at it, hit that like button and as well as the subscribe button. And ring the bell if you want to see any more of my videos in the future. Follow me on all my socials in the description below. And with that in mind, I'll see you later, Cap Nation. Bye-bye!